Shame on me for not repeating the lines. These were the words spoken by Jan Nepomniachtchi at the end of the fourth game in the press conference. What happened? How did it all go so wrong? Well, we find out in this video in the fourth game that was played between them. But before we get there, here are a few pictures from the game taken by the photographers Steve Bonhager and Anna Storman. This is Ding and Nepo before the game. Smile on Nepo's face. Ding also looking calm. Nepo because he was leading the match 2-1. And Ding because, he's getting his groove back into the match. But Ding was very focused today. He sat on the board with his hands and he was like, today I'm going to give my best. You could see it from his body language. Nepo was a bit sort of not in his element today. He couldn't remember his line and so on. By the way, this is a very nice picture of how the players sit there and how there's a waiting area where the players go and then they can take rest there. There's food waiting for them. And that's Nepo sort of exiting there. Okay, let's get back to the game and see how it went because it was an amazing encounter. Okay, so the game begins with 1c4 and Ding is kind of experimenting with his first move because in game number 2 he played d4. You all remember that 4h3 thing that he did. But here he goes for the English. He plays c4, knight f6, knight c3, e5. And now we have like the main line of the English, knight c6, the 4 knights and e3 played. Well, sometimes white likes to go g3. I feel that's the main way of playing. But e3 is also very popular. You have more than sort of 10,000 games that have happened here. Nepo played his bishop to b4 and Ding continued once again with the main move in the position, which is queen c2. In this position, there are two main moves. One is to take on c3, the other is to castle. Nepo simply took on c3 and well, if you brought your queen to c2, you would expect that Ding would take on c3 with his queen. This has been played many times before, but the second most popular move here is to take with the b pawn. And this is what Ding decided to do. And it leads to more complex positions because here you are kind of mangling up your structure. It's no longer, you have a doubled pawns here, but in return, your center is strengthened. So what will essentially happen is you will put your pawn on e4. If you get a chance, you will also put it on d4 and just control the center. That's how it went. d6 and here went e4. Castles and bishop e2. By the way, one thing to note about black strategy, and you might be wondering as to why would black just voluntarily come to b4 and take on c3. I think it's a classic case of not what goes out of the board, but what remains on the board is more important. Because black has given up his bishop, but what remains with his bishop on c8 is way more important. It's very well coordinated. His pawns are on dark squares. His bishop is on the light squares. His knights are well placed. And so black is happy with that position. Now Ding goes for the move bishop e2 here. There's also g3, which is played often to put the bishop on g2. And that's how you can also play, but bishop e2 was played. And here knight to h5. Very interesting move. And also you must note that the tactics here do not work with knight e5 because, you may want to pick this up on the next move. But after knight takes e5, bishop takes h5, there's a very strong move for black here. You may want to just take a second and find it. Yes, queen g5. Hitting the bishop here and also the pawn, and it's completely winning for black. Let's say you go bishop here. I just take gf, queen g2. The rook is hanging. Rook has to move to f1 and you can go bishop h3 and that is going to lose material. So knight h5 was played and now white goes for the move d4. This was Ding's preparation. Also, very interestingly, Ding's second Richard Rapport has reached this position against Ilya Zaragatsky before. So maybe there was part of their prep. Now the main move here, and I think this is where Jan was not happy with himself because there are many possibilities here. Queen f6 is the main move. Also, there's a very interesting move, f5. And I think this is the point where he's unhappy with himself for playing knight f4, because from a perfectly fine position out of the opening which black has, Yan drifts into a position where he's slightly worse, because after bishop f4, e f4, now Ding castles, and you can see that he has a very strong center. By the way, Richard Rapport in this position had gone h4 against his opponent, but Ding was not aware of it. He was out of his prep after black goes knight f4. He hadn't seen it before. So takes, he castles, and now queen goes to f6. Now rook fe1. Here, we have this tradition on our channel while I'm commentating live to set up an opening position where we can play some games like from the World Championship while it's going on. So we have this half an hour arena, and this was the position that we selected for the game. And what turned out to be very interesting is that black players, including myself, because I learned this plan from someone, started going g5. And they were like, okay, we can attack here. We have the f4 pawn, g4 is coming, and so on. But what I realized is that it's not a sound attack. You can play the move h3, stopping the pawn. And if black goes h5, trying to persist with the idea, it's actually losing now, because after knight h2, I hit the pawn on h5, g4 cannot be played. And if you were to play queen g6, then I go queen d1, very powerful move, again hitting here. And you may want to, like g4 is not possible, and you may want to take this pawn. And here I give you a small chance to think, what would you play here as white to play? Well, if you went and chopped the pawn on h5, too bad. Yeah, that's not the best move. The best move is just the simple bishop d3. The queen is trapped. Look at it carefully. It's just trapped completely. Okay, so this cannot be done. g5 is a little rash, and that's why Nepo's plan was very logical. He went rook e8. And here there are many ways to play, many different ways to play for Ding. But the way he chose wasn't perhaps the best. He went bishop d3. And I think a better idea could have been just simply going h3 in this position, stopping the bishop to come to g4. So the moment he played bd3, Nepo took his chance and came back in the game with the move bishop g4, hitting the knight. Now you really don't want to spoil your structure with bishop f3, gf3. So Ding pulled his knight back. And I think here Nepo should have been a bit more careful. A move like b6 makes a lot of sense. So does a move like rook a d8, just centralizing his pieces. But he went for the move knight a5. And here is my next question to you. What would you do here as white? From here, Ding started to play really, really classy chess. So the first move that comes to the mind is queen a4, because the knight is hanging. However, the point here is that b6 can be played, and then you can go f3, hitting the bishop. Bishop has to go back, let's say bishop e6, or you can even go bishop h5 just to understand, and then knight b3. And here, if you take back with the knight, I take a b3. This strengthens my structure a lot, and white should be better here. And if you try to go back to b7, then there are many different ways, but I think the strongest is e5, because after d takes e5, I have the very powerful move bishop e4, and it's just game over. Yeah, like queen is coming to a6, the knight is in trouble. Like even if you play rook a b8, then I can just take, and you can't take because e8 is hanging. So these were some of the interesting lines. Queen a4, I would suggest, is one of the main moves, but it's very concrete, and it's like, you have to find these moves like f3 and e5, knight b3, and so on. The move that Ding played, I think, is humanly beautiful. He played the move c5. And the idea of this move is very, very nice. He's giving up a pawn clearly, because he's never going to take this back and ruin his structure. Look at this. This is terrible. But what he's going to do is he's going to push his pawn to e5. And with this move, he hits the queen on f6 and also unleashes an attack on the h7 pawn. That's how it is. That's how he is played. The pawn to e5, he is pushed. So black must go queen to h6, in this position, defending his pawn on h7. And now, this is an idea which is stopped. But Ding goes d5. And look at this. These two central pawns are monsters. They are very, very powerful and they limit all the black pieces. And next up is coming c4 to even further bolster the center. If black goes c4, he just simply loses the pawn. There's no compensation there. At least he has a pawn right now for all his efforts there. You don't want to lose that out. So rook a d8 was played. And now c4. A move like b5 doesn't work. You would want to do that as black, but after rook b1 takes, the knight on c4, a5 is hanging, so if you take, white is just better. So b6 was played, and now Ding went for the move h3. I completely agree with Nepo's decision of going bishop h5. He wants to go to bishop g6. I was wondering that here, I think somewhere he got a bit worried about the idea with f3. That's what Ding seems to have been worried, because let's say if I go for something like queen c3, f3 might be possible, and you have to go g3, bishop g6. The king does get a bit weakened. So that's the reason why he decided to nip that into the bud. He played bishop e4. And it is clear that if you take the pawn on e5, he wants to take on h7 and you lose the rook. So bishop e4 is somehow aimed against f3. And also you may want to put the bishop on f3 followed by knight on e4 and all these ideas. He played the move rook e7. I was a bit surprised. I was expecting bishop g6 to trade the bishops, and I thought the trading of bishops is in black's favor. But I think after something like knight f3, take, rook takes, this is kind of the dream scenario that white is hoping for. Because the knight on f3 is extremely stable, controlling the e5 pawn. The d5 pawn is very stable. You can bring the other rook. F4 pawn is slightly weakened. The knight is out of the game. So from that perspective, I liked how Nepo played. He didn't go bishop g6. He went rook e7. He started improving his position. He started putting pressure here. So Ding went queen c3. Rook went to e8. And now Ding said, let's trade, because, if you trade, I'm very happy with this position where I have everything under control. So Nepo said, not so soon. I'm going knight b7. I want to improve my knight, but improvement of your knight comes at a cost. Because when you improve that knight, you want the d6 square for your knight. And you will have to play f6. And you have to allow e6. The pawn reaches there. So while your knight gets fresh life on d6 square, your two rooks become really quite depressed inside. We'll see how that pans out. He goes rook e2. Ding here. By the way, Ding could have played it slightly differently. For example, he could have started off with take, and knight f3. But he went rook e2. His idea was to double, and in came the move f6. And with this move, Nepo is saying that you can't take on f6. e2 is hanging here. You can't take on h5 because after queen h5, e2 once again hangs. So you must go e6. And now the knight sits on d6. And the knight is well placed. The position is closed enough that white cannot break through instantly, but clearly the e6 pawn is very powerful and those two rooks are tied up. Rook ae1 was played and the knight came to f5. This is where I think Nepo started to go wrong. Maybe it was better to go bishop g6, bishop e4, maybe come back, maybe play f5, bishop f3. The position is playable here, rook f8. You can continue and it's a good, nice position. But he went knight f5. And this is where he started to go wrong. Bishop takes h5. Good move. bg4 was also possible and a very interesting move, but he took queen takes. And then he played his rook to e4. And now he's attacking the f4 pawn. You can't play g5 because f6 will hang. So you have to play queen h6. And now comes queen to f3 attacking f4 again. Okay, have to go g5 here, and I think Nepo might have done that. But for him, he did not like the fact that here white can go g4. You can't take en passant, the knight is hanging. So you must go knight d4, or let's say knight d6. Actually, knight d4 is what happened in the game. So we'll come to it later. Knight d6, rook e2. And if you look at this position, queen g6, it's not easy to say whether white will be able to break through or not. It is clear that white is better. Say something like knight e4. You take rook e4. This is clear. This is better. I may even not take here. I may go something like rook f8 and I might allow you to take. It's clear white is better. But will you be able to break through here? Doubtful, because black does have some counterplay with f5 and h5. This would have been the best option, but Nepo had a blank, sort of a blind moment here. He played knight d4. Now it's your question. What would you play here as white to play? And this was the biggest blunder of the day. It just ended the game. So Nepo was expecting that Ding would take queen takes f4. And here his point was that after take, he wanted to play this very classy move, c6. And black is just doing fantastic now, because either you will win the e6 pawn, or I'll take and play rook d8 and win d5. So in that sense, it's completely trouble for white. So you can't take. But what he had missed totally was the fact that white can just take on d4. And this was a big miss by Nepo. Because after cd4, knight came to b3. It's just d4 is hanging. The knight is jumping into places like f5 and c6, and the rooks are doing nothing. All these effort which you took with f6 provoking e6 was for your knight. It was for your knight to sit here beautifully. It was not that the knight can go here and give itself up for a rook. And also one more little point is that after c5, which you want to play, because white to play, what would you do here? Well, d takes c6 would be, of course, not great, because then it spoils the structure. I can go queen g5. I can fight as black here at least. The move here is d6, of course. And you can't take here because of queen d5. d7. And it's just winning. So g5 was played in the game, but now he took queen g6, and I think it's the time for a final accurate move. What would you play here as white? I was actually asking the viewers who are watching it live, where do you want your knight to be? And many of them said c6. And I said, this is not very ambitious. You're not being the most ambitious here. Rook goes to g7. The right square for your knight is f5. And if you dream of that, you will find the move g4 here. If you found it, well done. So now you are just fixing the f5 square. Your knight is ready to jump. If you take fg, I'm going to take back. My knight will come to f5. And this is how Ding finished it off. Knight f5. Rook moved away. Queen e4. Threatening knight e7 check. Winning the queen here. So king went to h8. I was thinking of king f8 as a small little trap, so that if e7 blunder, I can just take here, or with the other rook as well. And then take, and black wins this endgame. But of course, you don't need to hurry after king f8. Anything, just king g2 even wins for white. Wait, be patient. But king h8 played, e7 was played by Ding. He's like a very direct player. Queen f7, and now again d6. Fantastic. Takes, the rook is hanging. So queen g8, he took on e8, and now came queen e6. And his point is, this is hanging. If you try to defend it, there is queen takes f6. So he went king g7. And I really like this next move by Ding. You can play rook d1, but then comes king g6, and this is hanging. So he first provoked rook f1. He provoked the rook to come up with rook h6, and then he went rook d1, threatening rook d8. And f5, he went a check. King here went for a check. Rook f6. Well, if you go king g7, the easiest way to finish it is rook d8 takes and rook d7. And you lose the queen. So he went rook f6. Check came in, king e6, and now another nice little touch. Rook e1 should win, but queen g7. Threatening rook e1 check, rook went to g6, and now queen f8 was played. And at that point, Ding won. Nepo resigned because look, after queen f8, the only move you have is rook g8, and there are many ways to win. One is take, and rook d8. No, don't queen here, and you win. E8 comes next. The other one, which is very aesthetically pleasing, is rook d8, and it's such a nice thing. You're just losing material here. Work it out for yourself. And with this, queen f8, Nepo resigned. Ding scored his first win of the World Championship match. You can see him literally gaining confidence, and the way in which he speaks in the post-game conference, the way in which he's saying that now I'm getting back into my groove, is making it look very dangerous for Nepo. The score is 2-2. We have a rest day tomorrow, and then the match will resume. I think it's going to get very bloody because both players are not very stable like how Magnus is. They are shaky, and this will result in many games with results, and we as chess fans couldn't have asked for more. For now, this is Sagar Shah signing off. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye bye.